Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. It seems a few of you are struggling to get on the link of this show. It's no surprise. They're getting a bit pissy. But this is the show that never disappoints. It's the most talked about show on the internet, the most bashed show and host. And yeah, here we all are, despite a plethora of promises to take us down. And yet, despite all that, we've added over 550 members to the Facebook page this week, near 600 to YouTube this week, and over 100 members to MeWe in the past week. And we've also increased the subscribers to the People's Club and also my Patreon. You know, they may not like us, but they can't ignore us. Plus, this show single-handedly keeps the alt media clowns very busy with their own special brand of clownery, and so provides an important service. And as for those in that field, I hope you all enjoyed your $5,000 blood money from the General to stop us being heard or just to slander us, because that, like all other plans, has failed. And also your email extortion attempts aimed at me this week won't work either. All the information has been passed on to the authorities and is more ammunition for future legal proceedings. And yes, we know exactly where it came from and also who initiated it. Oops. And all it proves is we are right over the target, so thank you for that verification. So our shows are specifically designed to trigger latent memories and for you to find out who you really are, re-energizing your DNA and PSI fields, rediscovering lost frequencies, love-based frequencies, and the phasing out of low vibrational fields we have all been kept in for a long time. I'm not here to be popular or to be liked, because what we are doing here is far more important for us all, even the alt media, denial experts and the clowns. I finally got round to doing part 2 of the People's Club video, which is now completed and up on the website for people to view, learn, absorb and subsequently teach. This is all about the cooperative model, which is for business, but also it's a psychological and social model. Part 3 is being done as we speak by other members, so look forward to that. It might be useful for all state groups and country groups to play that as part of their next call, so everyone gets to learn about it and also chat about it and see where improvements can be made or anything else can be learned. You know, we're all in this together. And what have we got for this show? Not a lot of news, not a lot of sub-intel, and zero op-eds tonight. It will be a shorter show to have more impact of what is to be said after we do the introductions. I may do another show with the op-eds and pieces cut out of tonight's show tomorrow. We'll see if time allows. Now, I want to thank again the people who have continued to support me via my Patreon, and I am very grateful for all of your support. I also want to thank the people who have donated to the People's Club in record numbers for the last 4 months running now, and it will all go to good causes. And a reminder to those who are new and also the hard of hearing, no director of the TPC or Kim has received any funds from the TPC to date. And I also want to thank some, I don't want to mention names because of the clownery that's going on. You'll know who you are, who sent in some or whole portions of their stimulus checks to the People's Club this week as well. Thanks to you all. Now, it's been an interesting week with the Zoom with the members last Thursday, after last Thursday's show, and was followed up by another Zoom call on Saturday with Kim, live on air, and clearly not dead, clearly not a man, destitute, on the street, or an AI. And Kim wants to thank you all. She had a fantastic time with you all. And from her point of view, it's refreshing to hear her talk to people with common sense and are willing to do, not just talk. You have no idea the levels of stupidity on some of the calls Kim has to deal with. It's beyond comprehension. So she had a fantastic time with you all and hopes to do it again soon. But as per usual, and it's not just about this one person, this is about a larger problem. You know, there was 3 hours of packed information on that Zoom call, and people were allowed to ask whatever questions they wanted. And yet some want to focus attention on the private life of one person out of near 300. You know, ignoring safety issues, ignoring that person's privacy, and a complete lack of non-thinking. But then you know which group that person belongs to now. And it's all too predictable. But perhaps he can explain to his new friends how a 3,400 bottle of wine tastes from the Rothschilds. But it's not about covering things up, you know, or that person in general. Like I said, this is about a wider problem of non-thinking, and it goes across all levels. You know, our show delivers more real information than any other on the internet. I can say that, I'm not bragging. It's a fact, you know, but some people's thinking patterns are all still in the gutter and at mainstream media levels. They look for faults, they look for the smallest levels of inconsistencies to prove me and the show wrong. But they're totally missing the point. We're looking for solutions to our problems, not create more. Not tittle-tattle of who's who, who's sleeping with who, who's in the inner circle. It's all wrong thinking. It's a distraction on mainstream media levels. What does prying into people's private lives achieve? Nothing. Whether it's someone from THI, whether it's some so-called famous people on TV, it doesn't solve our problems, and that is where I'm coming from with this. It's not about hiding information, but I feel it's important to protect the people who are on or in the firing line. And I will continue to do so for Kim, Ava, and anyone else who's a part of the solutions. And if people don't like that, go back to the TV world. You'll find plenty of that BS to gorge your tiny thinking minds on. And people really don't think enough about our security, the threats we get put under, the conditions we work under, and yet want me to expose their private details of one of the few people who is willing to sacrifice part of their life for the greater good. Well, to use Kim's term, I promise you that's not happening. Not on my watch, it ain't. You know, it boggles the mind. So as a test, I engaged the person wanting that non-relevant information and made a point of mentioning I would like some private details of that person's wife and mentioned her name. And he went completely ballistic and called me nasty. Well, touche to that person, as my point was made. You don't pry into other people's lives if you don't wish others to pry into yours. It's not going anywhere. And as for Operation Takedown, this is kind of fitting. Indeed. So, is this an exercise, the coronavirus? Is it real or is it not? Has the clarity of the two worlds now become also clear? Are we operating in the gaming virtual world or the real world? Which is which? All the MK Ultra that is going on now. It's not just for super soldiers, it was for everyone. Throw in some frequencies and you have a population of bot or sheep-like people. And essentially you have a recipe for disaster for those that see the illusion they are playing. But the key question is, for everyone now, is how much of your freedoms will you give away for safety? This is the latest tactic. What has become quite clear, or should have become quite clear now, if people really think, they will all realise you're all on your own. But you know what? We always were. We rarely get no help from anyone. None of it. It's just the illusion of it. So this is an opportunity for people to realise that and come together and support each other. Not compete with each other. This is our time. We were always on our own. And it's a case of weaning off the nanny state, or do we go to the next level of the nanny state, which will be live Hunger Games? Yours and our choice to make. This popped up yesterday, Spring 2020, with the title Virtual Meetings. Virtual. Are they trying to run sim games on us? Anyway, the IMF and the World Bank announced unprecedented debt cancellation program allegedly to address the COVID-19 pandemic on the eve of the spring meetings of the IMF and World Bank. Now, amid unprecedented coronavirus pandemic, it is said, the IMF, in partnership with the G20, well, I thought it was G7 or G6 or G5, used to be G48, I think it was at one point. And the World Bank has released an aggressive plan, they say, to immediately address this unprecedented global crisis. I guess some of these keyboards look on unprecedented. By cancelling all debts they are owed by any country that faces a moderate or high risk of debt distress before the coronavirus. And in a statement released yesterday, the executive board of the fund said it feels compelled to use the fund's influence in this moment to ensure that vulnerable countries are free to direct all public revenues at their disposal to stop the spread of this disease and mitigate the financial crisis. Only one problem with that. Because of the IMF and the World Bank, no country's got any money to do so. So, they declared themselves as the world's leading financial institution and went on. It is vital that we step in to guide the invisible hand, there's that term again, of the global market in the right direction. The fund acknowledges previous policies that impacted the basic needs of billions of the world's poor to the dictates of financial institutions' austerity policies, and that the unprecedented nature of the global pandemic demands a shift of the fund's policy priorities to stem the massive economic repercussions. On they go. We are humbled by this economic crisis and the role that we have played in prior to precipitating such a scenario. For years, the entire international financial system created by our Bretton Woods Charter has set up countries for the adoption of free market ideals. I think many of our members realise free market means something completely different to everybody else. By providing loans across the globe that no country could afford, we have helped countries spread their goods and in turn strengthen the bonds and livelihoods of everyday people, according to the statement. That's why over half of the planners are in poverty. They don't mention that. However, with more and more countries facing the challenge of a global pandemic, we decided to throw our massive weight, they have none, into this delicate job. And we are moving forward with a new process that will immediately cancel the debt of the 27 countries facing debt distress. Additionally, all 76 of the World Bank's International Development Association countries will receive full debt cancellation. All developing countries categorized either as middle-income countries or low-income countries who face high debt vulnerabilities will see a full cancellation of the debt. And in total, this process will apply to 111 countries. 111. These countries will receive full cancellation of all debts as they wrestle with the COVID-19 pandemic, and the board noted that this relief should help mitigate disruptions to the supply chains of essential commodities for consumption in the developed world, such as coffee and chocolate. I think people need food. Jackasses. That's not allowing for Kushner et al. To block said supplies, but there you go. Prevention of supply chain disruption is essential for timely delivery of medical supplies, including scarce personal protection equipment and medicines critical for developed countries as they fight the pandemic. Given the huge drop in commodity prices as a result of the crisis, countries that are economically dependent on fossil fuel revenues are experiencing the worst consequences of their economies crumble. For years, the fund and other international financial institutions have advocated for extraction-based development regimes and policies that provide mechanisms for developing governments to turn their subsoil wealth into cash with the help of Western oil companies. Dear me. Yeah. I'm just going to stop this there. The IMF and the World Bank, along with the UN and other clown organisations, including the Bush cartel in particular, have been planning for the last 5 years to have an asset-based currency with oil. So that's what they're talking about there. So you will have to extract all the oil and give a percentage to the IMF or the UN for so-called climate change. It's all in the words, they all give it away. You've just got to understand the background to it, because most people don't. So the fund acknowledged this history, noting that in developed countries around the world, the myth of fossil fuel-reliant wealth generation has become all too apparent. Dozens of international development organisations have expressed enthusiastic support for the fund's plan, while requesting that the fund and other international financial lenders take reparative action for the historic social and economic consequences of the burdensome debt levels. And the fund is announcing formal agreement with this position and is convening an international coalition to address this urgent matter. Oh dear. Well, what they're telling you is they've got no money. And whilst that may seem odd that they would cancel the debt, and it all sounds very nice with cancelling the debt, doesn't it? Except, listen closely to this, not one country around the world had any debt to begin with. I'll repeat that again. Not one country around the world had any debt to begin with. The IMF, the World Bank, UN, and all the other clowns sold all the so-called debt, which was actually credit, to the trust. All of it. And the second reason that they are cancelling the debt is they have a mercenary collection agents who call in the debt and threaten countries if they don't pay the debt. Well, now they can't pay the mercenaries and so can't collect the debt. That's what's going on. And so collecting the debt now is more of an issue as they can't pay their mercenaries anymore. Isn't that what we said on this show a long time back? It is coming. Global fascism, which is right in your face currently, lockdown, was all created by Zionists, the same as communism. It's full in your face now. And unless we stand up like responsible adults and not cower in the corner of our homes like naughty children, the world you thought you knew has ended. It will not recover apart from one action that will resolve it all. And that involves the trust. Don't believe me? Fine. Watch it all collapse. But one of the things that disturbs me more than most is the whole world is being held hostage on the words of one man, who is not even an expert on the subject he talks shit about. And in reality, there are no experts on this world. None. As every one of so-called experts have been educated with crap, with whole key missing pieces. Whether that's finance, government, banking, psychology, you name it. Medical in particular. Bill Gates is that man. Or the correct term, be ill from my vaccines gates. This man has publicly, several times now, said he wants to get rid of many humans on this planet. It's no longer in the realms of so-called conspiracy theory, which was a term that was thought up by the think tank clowns out of Virginia. It's all right out in public. He wants to get rid of us. But people just ignore it because, well, it's only the Africans or the Indians or the Chinese. Because that's the general attitude. But what if he designated your whole town, city or country? Is it only, well, it doesn't matter then? Let's put this into clear speech and thinking, shall we? He has publicly asked and declared he wants to kill numbers of us. And not one of the treasonous portal people challenged him in this stance. Not one. And to date, not one Prime Minister or President either. Bill the Lord Gates. And some will say, don't blaspheme our Lord. And I will say, he is acting exactly like the Lord of the book. Go and read your scriptures again about what the Lord did to humans in the past. It is exactly the same. Why? Same people, same program, and same entities is why. Why is he allowed to walk amongst us? Why are jackasses paying hundreds of dollars to happy clap this genocidal maniac in conferences? And not one person take umbrage? How little we value life today. It's shameful. And that has to change, and all the people must become accountable for their actions and make others accountable also. Silence does not work. We don't need more silence. We need voices to speak out, and I'm pleased many are attacking Gates this week. You know, there's plenty of others who need to be attacked in that way. Non-violent, remember. Like the portal people. It's them jackasses that have created all the fear. Now, one of the things that deeply concerns me, and I've been warning about this from as far back as 2014, is the police departments. And we've seen further evidence this week of their stupidity. And this is an urgent message to all police departments around the country and in several other countries to quit the Gestapo jackasses and targeting the people in times of stress and concern. The people in this country are under enormous stress of the situation that was not of their making, and having to put up with a government that is quite frankly not fit for purpose, and do not need your low-level thinking and thug-type tactics on our streets, finding people who have no masks, finding the same people who have just lost their jobs, businesses and income streams. Which retard level IQ in your ranks came up with that idea? And as this fake crisis unfolds and anger increases, those people you chose to bully, fine, kick, beat and shoot will fight back. And guess what? You lot are the first in line for the anger. You're not protecting the people as your job originally entailed. You're protecting the system and are little more than glorified satanic badge-wearing collection agents now. That's all you do. Harass people and collect fines. But I'm asking all the police officers, is that what you signed up for? And I'm asking you all to let go of your immature, childlike tantrums and frustrations and stop taking out on the people. The very same people who pay your wages, I might add, or have you forgotten that? Learn to speak to people, not at them. A warning first, not a straight ticket. You're there to do a job and ensure the safety of the public, not act like some criminal inmate. And this is an appeal to you all. You are all now in a very, very bad position. And you can carry on as you are and have the public turn against you, or get some real backbone and stand up and support the people. Because if you don't, you're going to need several motorcade-style funeral processions for your fallen members. And no, that is not a threat, but it will be an actual reality due to your own poor behaviour and selling out your own communities. And please don't write into me saying, I know this and that cop and they're all not like that. Fine, as this is clearly not intended for them. But they need to stand up and speak out more against the thugs that are in their stations. Come and support the people. The people will welcome you. Carry on being badge-wearing collection agents, and you're going down a very, very rocky path. Mr. Trump on Sunday touted about the potential life-saving benefits of treating coronavirus patients with hydroxychloroquine, said to be a powerful anti-malaria drug. Well, it was that powerful. Why are so many African people dying per day of it? 3,000 per day. Why are they not getting it? And despite a dearth of medical professionals or clinical evidence supporting these claims, he carries on pushing it. Or is it him, or is it the clowns behind him? Time will tell. But this just so happens to be one of the largest manufacturers of the drug, called Novartis. This is the same Novartis that previously paid Trump's now incarcerated former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, more than $1 million for a healthcare policy insight following Trump's election in 2016. This is a Swiss drug maker. Well, I never. The neutral Swiss again. Signed a contract that paid Cohen's newly formed limited liability corporation, Essential Consultants, $100,000 a month in February of 2017. After the details of the deal were leaked by the now jailed Michael Avenatti, whose then client Stormy Daniels was engaged in a legal dispute with the president, the company's CEO issued a public apology saying Novartis made a mistake in contracting with the president's personal attorney. Well, fast forward a few years, and Cohen is currently in federal prison serving a 3-year sentence for campaign finance violations, tax fraud, and also bank fraud. Novartis, on the other hand, just agreed to donate up to 130 million doses of the unproven drug, allegedly to help fight COVID-19. It's all about the money, you see. Next expose. The co-founder of a huge private equity firm sent an email this week to Jared Kushner and other Trump administration policymakers seeking to relax rules on the coronavirus relief money in a way that would benefit the company, according to sources familiar with the matter. Now, Kushner's family real estate business has financial ties to the company known as Apollo Global Management. Now, someone close to Kushner said there's nothing remarkable about the receipt of the email from Apollo co-founder Mark Rowan, born in and 2, Leon Black, born 2, and Joshua Harris, also born 2, were the co-founders of Apollo Global Management. And they said, well, Mr. Kushner gets hundreds of proposals from all sorts of people, but Apollo is not just any business. It made a $184 million loan in 2017 to Kushner companies. Oops. And Jared Kushner, Mr. Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor, retains an interest in the company. So the email that was obtained by the portal people went out to Apollo clients and other policy makers, and it makes a recommendation about a $100 billion loan program recently announced by the Federal Reserve to backstop lenders and investors. A program, it was said, designed to inject cash into the financial system to prevent it from freezing up. Can anyone say cartel? This is the levels of skullduggery that are going on in the government now. All kinds of financial scams being run, designed to leverage money to give the illusion they have it, and also pacify the public with checks. We'll cover that more later. Kushner, like Gates, needs to be dealt with. This is something else that we've covered recently, and American gasoline demand has collapsed as stay-at-home orders keep drivers off the road, following the pattern seen in the hardest hit parts of Europe. Now, sales at retail stations were down 46.6% from a year earlier in the week ending March 28th, and the average station sold about 11,000 gallons, which is less than 2 tanker trucks worth. The gasoline demand plunge accelerated as government orders on staying at home became more widespread and dropping 30% in a week. Now, the loss of consumption in the US echoes that of Spain and Italy, which imposed some of Europe's harshest restrictions on movement. Demand there for gasoline was down about 85%. Refineries are cutting back production as fuel piles up in storage tanks. Again, we covered that. And in turn, pushing down crude prices. Now, globally, oil demand may shrink by as much as a third, according to some estimates. I would go further. And the national figures line up with the state-level numbers. And last week, a trade group in California reported a drop of 60% in combined gasoline and diesel sales in urban areas, and 35% in farm markets from early March through March 27th. Trade groups in Texas and Florida reported big city gasoline sales down by at least a half. So what's this about? Well, you'll find out in the next piece also. But this is about the lockdown, and the less use of oil solves the other problem we've highlighted in the show, of a glut of oil and nowhere to store it. But that is a double-edged sword. And it's also another Ouroboros program they appear too stupid to see. So what's their latest to stop that? Well, here we go again. OPEC and its allies, known as OPEC Plus, aka Bush cartel, aka Mr. Netanyahu, aka Mr. Khamenei, and Mr. Obama. Yes, you all get the free oil deals and large brown envelopes, all 4 of you. out of Iraq and also Iran. Anyway, they agreed historic production cuts that will take 10 million barrels per day offline due to the coronavirus pandemic saps demand for crude. And it's got nothing to do with the coronavirus, and everything to do is no one's buying oil anymore. And the group will cut 10 million barrels per day in May and June, 8 million barrels a day from July through to the end of the year, and 6 million barrels per day beginning in January 21 and extending through April 2022. And the agreement was not contingent on nations outside of OPEC Plus curbing production. They'll have no option, there's nowhere to store it, and no one's buying it. And despite the record size of the cut, oil prices moved lower again as investors feared it would still not be enough to combat the, here's that word again from the media, unprecedented demand loss from the coronavirus. I guess they all read the same script. And here comes the finger pointing. The difference between Rothschilds and the Black Sun. Although there's Rothschilds in the Black Sun, and there's also Black Sun in the Rothschilds. President Trump on Tuesday said he may put a very powerful hold on funding to the World Horror Organization, correct term. And subsequently since this PC has, as he lashed out at the United Nations specialised agency and accused it of being very China-centric, whatever that means, amid the coronavirus pandemic. Reiterating his complaints from a tweet earlier in the day, the President said that the World Horror Organization has been wrong about a lot of things. I wish he would be that forthright with the people around him, particularly that son-in-law of his. Now, Trump has been critical of the World Horror Organization for opposing the travel restrictions from China and Europe, and they've been wrong about a lot of things, he said during a daily press briefing about the White House Coronavirus Task Force. And he repeated again, they seem to be very China-centric. And he added, we're going to put a hold on the money sent to the World Horror Organization, which subsequently did. Which is a good thing, because they're just a harvesting collection. In fact, we have previous evidence in previous shows that the World Horror Organization were, in some cases, the ones who initiated viruses. Oops. These next two pieces are indicative, where one group says one thing and the other group says another. The Attorney General William Barr late Wednesday suggested that the federal government in May should begin relaxing some of the, quote, draconian, unquote, social distancing restrictions imposed throughout the US. Oh my, their words give them away. Barr said in an interview with Fox News that the US had to be very careful to ensure some of the measures being adopted are fully justified. Oops. And there are not alternative ways of protecting the people amid the outbreak. And he says, I think you know when this period of time is at the end of April expires. Yes, we've heard that. We'll have more on that later. I think we will have to allow people to adapt more than we have, and not just tell people to go home and hide under the bed, but allow them to use other ways, social distancing and other means, to protect themselves, he said. A lot of interesting words in there. And then here comes melted candle face Nancy Pelosi. And she said that the House is unlikely to return to session later this month, giving her clearest indication, if she can be clear about anything, that Congress, like the rest of the country, could remain shuttered for weeks or even longer as the coronavirus crisis continues. Not really, it's winding down in every other country. And in a half-hour interview, Pelosi issued a stark warning to President Donald Trump, urging him not to prematurely rush to reopen major segments of the country before the coronavirus is under control, which she said could further send the US economy into a tailspin. No, it was you and your cohorts, Pelosi, that sent the economy into a tailspin with this fake virus. No, look, no one's saying there's no virus. There was a virus. We confirmed that in the show. But a lot of what is going on now is complete BS. Hospitals are empty. Man gets run over by car. Coronavirus. Man has heart attack. Coronavirus. That's what they're doing. Why? Because they don't want to go back to what was going on before the virus started, is what? Where they're drastically running out of funds, drastically running out of programs to blame Russians and Ukrainians and all kinds of other things. And they want people to forget about Epstein, Nexium and all the other child sex and trafficking that was being published everywhere. Hello, Prince Andrew. That's why. Like I said, it's never for one reason. These clowns have 3 or 4 reasons for every single event. This is disturbing for a number of reasons, and we will look into it when time allows, particularly because of where it is. New York City officials have hired contract labourers to bury the dead in its potter field on Hart Island as the city's daily health rate from the coronavirus pandemic has reached grim new records in each of the last 3 days. The city has used Hart Island to bury New Yorkers with no known next of kin or whose family are unable to arrange a funeral since the 19th century. Typically, some 25 bodies are interred there each week by low-paid jail inmates working on the island, which sits off the east shore of the city's Bronx borough and is accessible only by boat. Now, that number began increasing in March, as the new coronavirus spread rapidly, making New York the epicenter of the global pandemic. Now they are the epicenter of the New World Order that created the pandemic. Fact. And what they're saying now, there are about 24 bodies a day, 5 days a week, buried on the island, according to Jason Kirsten, who we've referenced previously, a spokesman for the Department of Correction, which oversees the burials. And they added 2 new trenches in case we would need them, Kirsten said, to help with the surge and amid an outbreak of the COVID-19 respiratory illness caused by the virus at the city's main jail. So they hired contract labourers, he said. We covered Venezuela recently and the fun and games with Maduro, and this was no accident either. Certain agency people from Virginia were involved again. A Venezuelan Navy coastal patrol boat sank in the Caribbean after allegedly ramming a cruise ship, no, it's the other way around, that it had ordered to change direction, and the owners of the Portuguese-flagged RCGS Resolute said the Navy vessel Neaguata also fired shots in an act of aggression in international waters. Now, the collision left the cruise ship, which has reinforced hull for sailing in icy waters, with only minor damage. And Venezuela accused the Resolute of an act of aggression and piracy, and also said it did not rule out that the cruise ship was transporting mercenaries to attack military bases in Venezuela. I wonder who that was. President Nicolas Maduro has previously accused the United States and other countries of plotting to overthrow him. Now, the incident took place near La Tortuga Island, which is a Venezuelan federal dependency, on March the 30th, and Colombia Cruise Services, sounds like a drug ship to me, which operates the Resolute, said the cruise ship had been carrying out routine engine maintenance in international waters more than 13 nautical miles from La Tortuga. And a statement from the Hamburg-based company said shortly after midnight that Niagara radioed the Resolute, questioning its intentions, and ordered the captain to follow its support on Island Margarita to the east. While the master was in contact with the head office, gunshots were fired, and shortly thereafter the Navy vessel approached the starboard side at speed and purposely collided with the Resolute, it added. And the Navy vessel continued to ram the starboard bow. Perhaps there was Klingons there. In an apparent attempt to turn the ship head towards Venezuelan territorial waters. We covered about the Russians sending medical supplies recently to Italy, with a rather familiar name to this show, and it was a nice gesture. They sent medical supplies, which arrived in New York as part of the operation dubbed From Russia with Love by the Kremlin. And in late March, a similar cargo was flown to Italy, the worst hit country in the crisis, along with 100 Russian military medics. Now, the Russian media speak of widespread gratitude for this generosity, but how much of it is fact and how much is fiction? And so the BBC decided to step in on it and do their usual anti-Russian script, with the title, Is Russia Exploiting This Crisis? So you help people and that's exploiting it. Really. This is where the thinking is wrong. It's a bit like THI and the People's Club. You help people and you get accused of being a scammer and exploiting this and all kinds of other things. Wrong thinking. So the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, deep state clown, tweeted that the US had paid for the Russian supplies and that we have to work together to defeat COVID-19. Paid with what, Mr. Pompeo? You have no funds. And the BBC went on. The US says the delivery was agreed in a phone conversation between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin a few days ago. If the Russians sent supplies, that was not done by Trump, that was done by Kim. Oops. The Russian Foreign Ministry said the US paid for half the supplies and the other half was donated by Russia. But Russian TV channels call the cargo aid and make no reference to the payment. And a report by Gazprom Media's NTV described how excited JFK airport staff filmed the Russian plane, took selfies next to it and thanked the pilots and also President Putin. That's the difference, you see. But the media always want to put a spin on it. So the article goes on. New York is a coronavirus hotspot. Not surprised. And the US death toll has risen above 5,000, according to Johns Hopkins University, another CIA agency-based university. So we'll take their information with a pinch of salt, shall we? Now, the medical aid for Italy certainly received official thanks, but there was some scepticism about Russia's intentions, and the Italian newspaper La Stampa said, according to its sources, the aid had little practical value and was more like a geopolitical opportunity for Mr. Putin. Not sure the Italian people who gained some benefits out of it think that way either. But there you go. And they went so far as to brand 80% of the delivery useless. No doubt. That was the P2 paper. And when asked about that, the Russian ambassador to the US, Anatoly Antonov, reacted angrily, saying the groundless criticism and lack of trust for the assistance that Russia provided to Italy is cynical, immoral and cruel to those who are fighting for their lives. Absolutely, bit of common sense there. And the Russian Defense Ministry also hit back, saying the article was fueling anti-Russian fake news and its authors were hiding behind the ideals of free speech. Yes, we all know where the authors came from. And this is another story. It's not just America that's suffering, but the NH staff in the UK, NHS staff in the UK, do not have protective equipment they need to treat any coronavirus patients, according to the medics. And they said doctors were putting their lives at risk by working without adequate protection. And it comes as the Health Secretary said 19 National Health Service workers had died with coronavirus since the outbreak began. And on Friday, Matt Hancock said there was enough kit for everyone and unveiled a plan for addressing shortages. Yeah, you can unveil all the plans, you're right, there is none. And as of Friday, 9,875 people had died in hospital with the UK with coronavirus, which is a rise of 917 on the previous day. And Mr. Hancock told the BBC the government was looking into how NHS staff who died with the virus were infected because you didn't protect them. And then added cautiously that some of them may have caught it outside of work, typical deflection and view and blame somebody else. Where are we next? The stupid bitcoins will take us into the Intel, which will finish tonight's show. Central banks push for heavy-duty regulation for centralised, which is the opposite of the decentralised, as we've covered in the Clowns and Panic, and privately issued global stable coins. What, for jackasses? Do jackasses go in stables? Maybe they do. And considering prohibiting decentralized ones. So here's the difference between the Rothschilds Bitcoin and the Black Sun Bitcoin. Just one wants decentralized, the other one wants to centralize it. Seen the pattern now? So fiat-pegged cryptocurrencies are coming under scrutiny based on recommendations from the Financial Stability Board. Well, that's a complete waste of time, that board, if ever there was one. The Financial Stability Board outlined 10 recommendations to central banks for regulating stable coins for jackasses, including outright prohibition. And the FSB is an international entity that provides suggestions on the global financial system. Well, they haven't done very well, have they? And it comprises central banks and finance ministries from the major G20 economies. Now, the recommendations are to be presented before an audience of G20 countries and reference major stable coins, including USDT, USDC, TUSD, PAX and DAI, whatever that is. And it said, given the market's heavy reliance on stable coin, a ban could mean disaster for Bitcoin and the broader cryptocurrency market. Furthermore, the FSB suggests to authorities that if they can't control and regulate fully decentralized stablecoins, they should consider banning them. It's all about control, you see. Final one before the music break. This was first reported by Offshore Alert, and at least 10 complaints were filed in the Southern District of New York on April the 3rd, alleging firms had sold crypto tokens to US investors that were in fact unregistered securities. Amongst those targeted in the suits are the cryptocurrency exchanges Binance, BitMEX operator HDR Global Trading, as well as notable blockchain projects like Tron, Civic, Block.one, Kyber Network and Status. Buybox, QuantStamp, Bancor and Qcoin are also named in individual complaints. Now, Binance and the issuers wrongfully engaged in millions of transactions, including the solicitation, offer and sale of securities without registering the tokens as securities and without Binance registering with the SEC as an exchange or broker-dealer. As a result, investors were not informed of the significant risks inherent in these investments as federal and state security laws require. I hate to say it, but I did warn you about them. We'll be back shortly. Hi all and welcome back. Some rather disturbing news items there, but it also connects a lot of dots because it's exposing what these people are up to. It also shows how the governments really don't have a clue. And we can all blame Trump and we can blame Boris Johnson and all the others. But we're running programs of pure stupidity, and you'll see further evidence in the intel. So reports that confirmed our earlier intel last week of medical supplies being blocked into California and also Canada both came out in the mainstream media this week. I wonder whose the real news is. Next item. Rumours of an end to the lockdown here in America. We received this over the weekend. But a word of caution, it will likely not include the greed-based harvesting states known as California and New York. Why? Because they are appearing to be the worst affected. For the simple reason is so they can get more funding is why. And all of it is based on a lie. And it's time the people in those states drove out their so-called leaders. It's all too predictable. You could have forecast quite easily a month or two ago that the main epicenters would be New York and California. Greed-based harvesting states is why. Not the people, the clowns who operate it. Now the projected date, but not confirmed, is around April 26th. This week, allegedly, Mr. Trump set up a financial task force with Minuchin, born in and born to, Ivanka, Larry Kudlow, born to, Robert Lighthizer, Wilbur Ross, who spent his time at Yale and Harvard and worked for the Rothschilds & Co. for 24 years. And then we have the snake oil salesman himself, Jared Kushner. Yet again, he's involved. He's just about the worst son-in-law you could possibly have. And again, another one, born in and born to. And all I will say, and I'll repeat again, just me, this is my opinion, is to Mr. Trump is good luck with that team and have a nice day. Because the rest of the year will not be pleasant whilst you're surrounding yourselves with utter jackasses. But the door is always open to you once sanity prevails. And it will. It'll slap you right in the face. So let's see Mr. Munchkin's economic skills, shall we, with his comments this week. Treasury Secretary Stephen Minuchin said that he expects Americans to be able to survive for 2.5 months on $1,200, which is about $17 a day. And in an interview with CBS Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan, noted that the $1,200 relief checks that many Americans will be getting would not be enough in some parts of the country. It's not enough, period. But, Mr. Munchkin says, I think the entire package provides economic relief overall for about 10 weeks. And he says, hopefully we will kill this virus quicker and we won't need it, but we have liquidity to put into the American economy to support American workers and American businesses. All lies, as we'll find out. It's jackass economics based on common core skill sets that Minuchin, and if Trump has picked him, is sending this country, and it's heading down the pan for good, just like him. $1,200 for 10 weeks, and the public tolerates this. You know. The trust will not be re-engaging with any government until official promises that were made to us are kept. And with advisors like Minuchin, who's been fired twice, and Jared, I am blocking food and medical supplies into the country, Kushner, we wish them well and farewell. Minuchin, a former investment banker with a net worth of $400 million, who founded One West Bank, who were involved in mortgage security scandals. Yes, that Minuchin. As your advisor, Mr. Trump? No. Minuchin's about as useful as the violinist on the Titanic, and symbolic of the new Titanic sinking called America. Next item. The internet slowdown many have observed is due to Virginia-based people redirecting traffic for rogue purposes. We may have more on that later. Next item. And this will kind of bring it home. Trump tweeted today, check your bank accounts. I put a stack in there, and don't forget to holler at your boy in November. This is just wrong on so many levels, and it's not remotely funny, and here's why. But you have to say it's kind of typical service-to-self-based politician rhetoric that I find personally sickening. So what has unfolded today is excuses as to why the stimulus checks haven't all been sent out. It's already surfaced, from the IRS equipment being outdated to today Minuchin announcing that money was sent but to the wrong banks, And this is all total BS, 100%. Now, the IRS portal said if you don't see the payments accredited to your account, go and check with your bank to verify that they received it, and also give the last 4 digits of the bank account number associated with the deposit. Only problem with that is, like I had to do this week over a different matter, I called a bank and waited 70 minutes to speak to someone. So talking to IRS people when they owe money is nigh on impossible. And this is to get the public to spin the wheels. No one will answer you, as they have no staff in place to answer you, because of their Let's Save Money programme, which is called the lockdown. It's the Ouroboros programmes again. There are no glitches, Mr. Minuchin, only lies. They all know that they do not have the total funds to deliver all of those stimulus checks to all as promised. Fact. Now, what is nice to see is some of the stimulus checks being paid out this week. All too few, I might add. And the question remains is, where did it come from, and what is the future cost or damage those checks will bring? So here's where it come from. We've already mentioned they stole out of the Social Security Fund and the Pension Fund. Kim mentioned on Saturday's Zoom call that the government had $35 million for the stimulus checks, and a further amount they collected yesterday of $37 million from the BlackRock Black Sun Group. So that's a total of $72 million to pay the stimulus checks. So they are trickling checks out and giving the illusion to the public they have the $2 trillion plus stimulus bill. And I can assure you 100% they don't. 72 million is a fraction of the 360 billion they have promised to the public for these checks. So that 72 million is less than 1%. In fact, it's 0.0002% of what is required. And I know some on the internet and miscreants within our group are stating, well, you were wrong and we got our stimulus checks. And let's all get excited because Thomas was wrong. I wouldn't be jumping up and down too quickly without pondering on the wider picture, which I'll cover shortly. So you wanted to know why a tiny fraction got stimulus checks. Well, there is your answer as to how and also why. But it's also interesting to note, and maybe a coincidence, is the high level of THI members who have received the checks in comparison to the population. Is that to create doubt amongst us? One wonders. And something for you all to ponder on. But rest assured, both Kim and I are delighted at least some have received their checks, because many, many people need it badly. But what we are saying is, at what cost? People are too easily seduced by money. It overrides our thinking process. But the fact remains, the government is broke. So is the Treasury. So is the Federal Reserve and their banks. Hence the 500 billion attempted injection into the Federal Reserve via the stimulus bill. And yet no one or too few ask, where is this money coming from? It's all stolen money. And people will find out very, very quickly. You won't have to wait long. Now, many of the public will say, well, I don't care. I got free money from the government. Wrong thinking. It's not free money. That money is yours to begin with. Governments don't have money. They have our money. And they have educated that fact out of you and your thinking. Just stop it. It's the same with banks. Banks don't have any money. They have our money. Because if we all take our money out of their banks, they have only clown money left. And see how long that lasts then. Well, here's 4 questions for you to ponder on. What if those $1,200 checks are your share of the sale of your country to the Rothschild-based Chinese consortium? Two, have you pondered on the reasons and logistics of why you are receiving those checks at all? 3, have you pondered on whether your jobs will be available to you all when this fake lockdown ends? And 4, do you think all that inconvenience in your life over the past month is worth just $1,200? Next item. You've received those checks, like I said, from stolen money out of the Social Security and Pensions Fund. Also leveraging of other funds due to BlackRock and the Black Sun Group. Leveraging of other funds that don't exist. And time will show that. And they will not be able to keep up with lying to the public. So they got 72 million. But getting out 72 million in stimulus checks every 2 weeks since they started paying them out. That's all they've raised in 2 weeks, 72 million for the stimulus checks, when it requires 360 billion. It will take them 5,000 weeks to pay everyone off at the current rate, which is 96 years. So you can all carry on in the illusion or face reality, and time very quickly will tell on this matter. Very quickly. We, on the other hand, we shall wait until both sides, Rothschild and Black Sun, are broke trying to pay the bill, and then we're going to step in. Next item. Oh dear, I forgot about this one. Oh dear. There's a massive shortage of masks, mainly due to the blocking by FEMA, along with Kushner and Associates, whereby they blocked American companies supplying them to America and Canada, and also blocked the ports and airports of shipments coming in, which has now been confirmed by California port authorities. And we thought that was bad. Listen to this. So the latest jackassery, to use, quote, a Rothschild's term for these people, and special type of stupid award for this week is: we will collect the used medical masks, sterilise them, and then reuse them. All fine and clean as far as I'm concerned. except where did they send them to be sterilised and cleaned? Thailand. I kid you not. Cleansed, and in some cases not, given the elements over there, and then to be sent back, only to then be held up at the ports and the airports because of FEMA and Kushner. You can't make this stuff up. Like I said, government is not fit for purpose the way it's being ran. And that's not Trump's fault either. The world today is a gigantic mess of epic proportions. And this is why so much of the war was being played out behind the scenes. I did warn you all you would not like the public version, and here it is. The reality, the world has no plan. They are carrying on like we're still running the old systems and the old programs, except it's all gone, and the jackasses are scrabbling around the world for funds they don't have, running programs of control that no longer exist, and what ensues is total and utter carnage. Nobody knows what they're doing. They're all arguing and finger-pointing at each other in classic faction-based mode. Meanwhile, the people suffer. And if ever there was an opportunity for all the people to come together in harmony and build the People's Club, which is not a money-based venture, it is a teaching program of a new way for us to be and act. A cooperative, not competitive. All share, not everyone for themselves. All benefit, not just the few. This is our time. Their finances, it's all collapsed. Your governments have collapsed. Your major institutions like the World Horror Organization, the UN, World Bank, IMF and others of their ilk have collapsed. The UN said this week they were running out of funds. Thanks for the confirmation. Charities have collapsed and been exposed. Hospitals and care rendered mute. Food shortages due to greed-based merchants like FEMA, Pelosi and Kushner. It's all there now for everyone to see. This is what this show's been telling you. And yes, people will blame Trump. But there are 330 million plus in this country, and you're telling me to blame one man or one woman? No. We all failed as we forgot it is all our responsibility. And if every American, and people in any other country for that matter, accepted that fact and came up with solutions, it changes everything overnight. We are the problem. We'll be back with a roundup shortly. Quick recap of the intel before we go into the final two pieces. The government, the Treasury, the Fed, and even BlackRock have no money. They've acquired, by stolen funds, out of the Social Security and pension funds and other leveraged funds, 72 million out of a 2 trillion stimulus package, remember. Kushner et al. Are blocking medical and food supplies, although we have pulled some of that back. Minuchin thinks Americans can get by for 10 weeks on $1,200. The internet is being slowed down because of Langley. And Trump's thinking more about November than what's going on now. So the $360 billion for the stimulus checks, which stimulus means to excite people. I wouldn't be getting excited over $1,200. Is less than 0.0002% of what is required. If it's taken them 2 weeks to raise 72 million, it's going to take them 5,000 weeks at that rate to pay everyone off, which is 96 years. We're going to sit back and watch it all unfold, and we'll be ready. And I'm going to repeat again those 4 questions. What if those $1,200 checks are your share of the sale of your country to the Rothschilds-based Chinese consortium? Have you pondered on the reasons and logistics of why you are receiving those checks at all? Have you pondered on whether your jobs will be available to you when this fake lockdown ends? And do you think all that inconvenience to your life, lifestyle and income is worth just $1,200? And then the stupidity award. The government decides en masse, not just Trump, that we need more medical masks, so we would reuse the previous ones by sterilising them and sent them across to Thailand to be sterilised, and then when they were sent back with no checks of whether those were interfered with, they're then held up at the ports and airports. Like I said, the government, not the personalities, the government itself is not fit for purpose any longer. So this is an analogy of what is playing out on this whole planet in terms of a jigsaw puzzle. And you start off with a box of jigsaw pieces, and you open the box. And you think that box is yours until the box is unsealed. And you set off building the jigsaw picture, but you are unaware of the rules or what's gone before. As before the box was opened, the 4 corner pieces were given to one group. Half of the puzzle pieces were given to another group, and the other half to another group. And those 2 groups think they own the whole jigsaw and began to assemble it. Then they both realise, when it's too late, they don't have all the pieces. So they, the 2 groups, start stealing each other's jigsaw pieces to complete the jigsaw, or so they think. Oblivious to the fact that the 4 corner pieces are still missing and will not be returning them to the box. So they fight over all the pieces, convincing themselves they both own the jigsaw, and carnage ensues, which is what we're seeing now. So the lessons from this is A, those groups are fighting over control of the jigsaw that doesn't belong to them. B, they fight over controlling a jigsaw that no longer exists. C, they have collective Alzheimer's and sold the Jigsaw box many times over and forget that fact. And D, you do realise we the people are the jigsaw pieces in the box. Let that sink in. The group with the 4 corner pieces, who seemingly had so much less than the other 2 groups, actually removed the jigsaw in its totality and built a new one. So all the people can have a jigsaw box. Final summing up of tonight. The abject failure of the dynamics and logistics surrounding the virus is for all to see now. Ouroboros programs being ran on steroids. Why is that? Because they're still running the old programs of harvesting, except there is little left to harvest anymore. The previous trustee made sure of that. The world cannot be fixed currently by the system only. The people can fix it. Your current system of operating cannot be fixed, as they are incapable for one reason. Because everyone wants fingers in the pie. Before the pie is even made. Even before the fruit is ripe. Everyone wants their cut of it. Because that is the exact way the old system ran. Brown envelopes, transfers of assets via underground trains, backdoor deals, fake trade agreements, political manoeuvring, so when product A comes out, due to all them deals, the whole pie is gone. The Pentagon, agencies, the Fed, the IRS, governments, Rothschilds, the Black Sun, Vatican, World Bank, UN, IMF, NATO, World Horror Organization, Five Eyes and some others all have their dirty fingers in every pie. Except now. No pies are being made and everyone is now starving. More so them. And until that plays out, nothing will be done or achieved. But we the people cannot sit back. We must build the alternative solution. Build the people's network, the people's businesses, the people's ideas, projects and solutions. Because waiting for zero common sense jackasses who don't understand the system, we will all die. And no, I'm not joking this time. Trump is well aware of who we are, well aware of our knowledge base that goes way beyond government levels, and that knowledge must be delivered in a global address. We are willing to do it because the whole dynamics of this planet would change with that knowledge delivered to all of the people. It is the only quickest and safest way to change this planet. And yes, it will be brutal truth. Yes, many will disbelieve it. But it has to be done for the benefit of the all. The other option is global rising and more violence that is unnecessary. And yet again, I'm calling on the Council to make this happen. It is the only way to teach the world of the old programs run by many people who are totally unaware of the programs that they are and were participating in, and still don't. Once the problem is revealed, we then can be all tasked to provide the solutions. All of us. But the harvest mentioned earlier isn't spoiled. It's all ripe, fresh and ready to be delivered from the trust that belongs to us all equally in terms of currencies and hard assets to back a credit-based financial system, not a debt-based harvesting system like the current one, of which there is nothing left. So to the Council, we are requesting the facilitation of the global address as discussed many times previously, and I am submitting that on request on behalf of we the people, yet again, ×3. It is the solution, the only solution that prevents mass violence, and it's time for the truth to be spoken loud and clear. Please respect our wishes. We do not want people on the streets smashing things up, throwing projectiles and shooting and beating each other. Not one of those types of protests has led anywhere and only brought more pain and more stringent laws against us. We need non-violent, non-compliant protests. Take all monies out of the banks is an example of that. Refuse to return to work after the lockdown. Block all roads leading to the capitals of each city, like the French do. It grinds the country to a halt, and then we give them our demands and our solutions, not theirs. Theirs don't, hasn't, and will never work. Final piece is something one of the members wrote. It's 100% spot on. Proactivity for me is working on myself, inner and shadow work. Service to others, practicing non-overreaction, non-compliance, civil disobedience. And a message and suggestion, forget about the masses holding the cabal's illusion in place. Their job is to hold those who are awake, aware, enlightened back from progressing, evolving and moving forward. They all love the illusion, hope that everything's fine. Nanny state, big brother will fix it or take care of us. Well, you know what? They won't. And they never will. I may be back tomorrow for some op-ed pieces, we'll see. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. I hope it's brought you a lot of clarity. But we will not get by in anger. We have to live to tell. What have you done today that will make you feel proud? Will you rise? Or will you fall for the money, money, money? Or do we all want to love? This has been the